sometimes for the first time, moments before you're asked to vote on things. Sometimes it's very frustrating coming from a military background and coming from a business background. You know, in a business, you have to take a lot of time to make decisions, and you make decisions for the best of your employees, the best of your clients, the best of your staff, and the best of your business, because you have to succeed. And there in Lansing, a lot of times you don't have much time, and you have to say yes or no on a bill. And then you get in trouble for saying yes, and you get in trouble for saying no, because you're never going to please everyone. And I've come to realize that's okay, because I'm not here to please everyone. I'm here to do the best thing for our district, the best thing for our state. So I do represent 93,000 people. It's good to see a great crowd here tonight. 93,000 different opinions, trying to say, what is Will Bruck going to do for 93,000 people? And so sometimes it can be frustrating. Sometimes it can be very honoring. This last week, I got through the Senate committee my bill to change the name of South Dixie, a mile stretch up in the Charter Township, just south of Monroe, between Albin and Dunbar Road, after Joseph Liedel. He was a captain in the volunteer fire department there at Monroe Charter Township. We're renaming a mile strip of the road after him. And I tell people it's not a bill of like great consequence. It's not going to change your life. It's not going to change my life. But what it does for our community is it builds pride. It brings pride back to our district. And it brings the sense that we honor service members in our district. And I found out today that it's going to actually be up in the Senate next week for vote. So I'm very, very excited about that. You know, and as I said, it's not something that's going to change how much you pay in taxes one way or the other. But it's something that is important for our district. I have a number of other bills in, but one of my favorite things to do, people say, what does a state rep do? And I wondered that before I actually started running or decided to run for state representative. I thought you stayed up there 5 days a week and you had to live up in Lansing. Like I knew Zorn drove home quite a bit. But I mean, I had no idea they only meet 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. And as it works out, usually every week there's 1 or 2 days that are canceled. Most of my time is spent in the district. I call Erie home. I'm originally from Mabee, so that's where all the Brucks are from. So if you know other Brucks, probably most of them live up in either Ashe Township, Exeter Township, or Ida. But I live in Erie. That's where I called home. I moved there in 2001 with the goal of moving back to Mabee. I wanted to live in Mabee. That's where all my kinfolk live, all my family live, my parents. But I kind of fell in love with South County, I'll be honest. And then I deployed. 9/11 occurred, actually just a few months after we moved into our home in Erie, and my life changed, our life changed. 2003, I got deployed. I was gone for 18 months, 5 days notice. That's a big change when you have 2 little kids. We had a 2.5 and a 4-year, 2.5 and a 3.5-year-old boy at home when I left. And I came back and they were big boys, you know, a year and a half later. But we ended up staying in Erie, and now we call Erie home. So my goal is to make Michigan a better place. And so the off days when we're not in Lansing, I was in Lansing today, almost got here late because there was not an accident, but a car fire on 23. I gave myself 2 hours and 45 minutes to get down here, and I barely made it in time, but I made it. But my favorite thing to do is to do in-district meetings and to come to township meetings and to meet people in fire stations or wherever they work and do visitation and see what's going on in the district and how can I give assistance. As a state representative, I have the opportunity to connect, I'll say, the dots or help townships or businesses that are having problems with things. For instance, in the city of Monroe, they're having an issue with the railroads. I happened to be at the right meeting at the right time. Big explosion in the city council meeting over CSX, and an issue with the railroad with retention wall on Kentucky Avenue that had fallen down. It was in disrepair. And they're trying to contact the railroads, getting nowhere, getting answer machines, not getting call back. And so as a state representative, I stepped in and I called the Michigan Railroad Association. They put me in contact with the right person. John Kuhl put me in contact with Herbert Smith, who's over the Midwest region for the railroad. And I was able to put them in contact and get resolution. And moving forward or fast forwarding, they have it in the budget to rebuild that retention wall. They came out and repaired it temporarily. And it's not a huge thing, but it's something that I could assist with. A number of other townships, whether it's contacting DNR or working with Frenchtown to assist with their ambulance service, there has some issues with MCA and their own advanced life service ambulances because MCA has a contract. Putting those people together and getting them to the table. I'm not fixing the problem, but helping getting the right people to the right table to help bring resolution. I said I have a long career in the military, learning to work with people from every you want to talk about society. The military has every aspect of society within it. We're the most diverse military in the world. And I know this because I've seen a lot of other militaries around the world. We are by far the most diverse group of people, I think, on the planet. And our military reflects that. And working together for mission success, that was my goal. I was a commissioned warrant officer. I retired as a chief warrant officer 4. And it may or may not mean anything to you, but in the Army or in the military, it's quite a rank. It's a lot of responsibility. You have a lot of people that you're making decisions for and projects that you're designing and getting built and missions that you don't allow mission scope, and you have to get everybody on the same playing field and go in the same direction in order to get the mission accomplished. So that's one thing I bring to the table. And then as a business owner, again, you don't see people as red or blue or black or white. You see them as people that need care. When it comes to home care, you have to take care of people. And you have to have the right employees. And you want a tough job, try hiring somebody, especially after COVID. But you arrange and you get the right people in the right place to do the right job, and you get mission success, which, in my business is taking care of people, ensuring that they can stay home safely and live with dignity, etc. So that's what I bring to the table. When I come to a township, I've been to a number of township meetings here. I've hit every township in the district, which is a lot of townships, a lot of cities, a lot of village meetings. And I try to do it as much as I can. Most are on the same 2 days of the week throughout the month, so I have to pick and choose. And sometimes I'll come to a meeting for 20 minutes and then rush off to the next meeting. But my goal is to be available. That's one thing I do want to be. I want to be transparent and available to people. So I give my personal cell phone out to all the township officials so they can reach out to me when they have an issue. They don't have to go through my staff. And I direct people to my staff when it's necessary, but if it's a personal issue that needs assistance now, I want to know. So tonight, I want to hear, I can't guarantee that I can fix anything. That's the first thing I guarantee. There's no guarantees. But what I can do is listen. I can take feedback. If there's something that I can work with, I give you the promise I'll do what I can to assist with. And so before we start, I would just like to go around the horn and just have everybody introduce themselves and say where they're from, if you don't mind. And I'll start right up here. No, you don't have to stand. Thank you, Barb. Gotcha. All right. Awesome. Thank you. Gotcha. We'll stay on the left side, and then we'll go to the right.
Okay, yeah, I live in Toledo, Ohio, but I have, my backyard is
Gotcha.
South Harlem, this is my daughter, Felicity Harmon.
Belitsky? Felicity Hall. I like the name.
From Erie, Michigan, but I live in Luna Pier right now. Just kind of came to get some insight on the Parmley skate park
Okay.
and parks.
Hi, I'm Jenny Skinner. I live right around the corner in Legacy, and I'm here to hear about the energy issues.
All right.
find out what the government's trying to push on us people in Bedford without any saying yes or no. Seems like it comes out of the governor's office, and this is what she's going to do, and bing, bang, boom, they want us to accept it. I'm here to find out what we can do about it.
Josh Stump. I live in Lambertville. I work in Lansing. I follow you closely. You work 2, 3, 4 doors down. So I just wanted to see what you had to say about Bedford and the district, and excited to see everybody here. So.
I'm Paul Wolfarth, Ottawa Lake. I came to see what's up with this local control ballot initiative, and that's about it.
Thank you, Paul.
I'm Stefan, and I just live right over in Indian Acres, Temperance, and I just needed to hear what you had to say.
I'm her better half, Ralph. I came to support all these young fellows that want to just ride their little bikes all over and jump stuff and that. But why electric cars? I mean, Michigan is not built for electric cars. They go 100 miles and they don't charge in the winter. And why? You know? Yeah.
Jack Rocker, and I'm here to talk about the BMX skate park in Parmley.
Nice to meet you, Jake.
Ashton Ridgely, and I'm also here regarding Parmley Park.
Annie Perkle, and I'm also here with Parmley Park.
Corinne Segura, I live in Bedford. I'm here to listen about Parmley Park.
I'm Reese. It's my first at the council, and I came because of an article that was in the Bedford Press last week about losing local control and handing everything over to Lansing. And I think that if we're going to have the Bedford that we want to have, we need to have a voice. So thank you for doing this meeting tonight.
You're welcome, ma'am. Thank you for coming.
My name is Tice. And I live in Cincinnati.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You came a long ways. You get the trophy for coming the longest.
Yeah.
My name is Jerry Smith, and I'm here with to see what's happening with the Parmley Skate Park.
My name is Joan Long, and my husband and I live in Lambertville.
Dave Long, Will, thanks for being here. Appreciate your service to our country and also the commitment to our township and to the state of Michigan. So it's really appreciated. And I also want to point out that Josh Stump was born across the street from us. We haven't seen the young man. And
like me coming back from a deployment, seeing your kids a foot taller?
Literally.
And
hi, Josh.
Then we missed a couple. All right, and the gentleman in the back by you, Josh. Okay, so you're here about the Parmley Park. Is that correct? I didn't build any park. I'm going to throw that out first. But well, it sounds like there's a number of you here. First thing I do want to say is thank you all for coming here. This is, I hope it's productive, and I hope when we're all done, you'll be glad that you came here today. If nothing else, I don't know if I'm worth seeing, but hopefully I can take some feedback that I get tonight, and then, we can hopefully make some maneuvers there. It sounds like Parmley Park is a pretty important thing to a lot of you folks, especially young folks, and that seems to be something I guess we'll start out first. If somebody wants to, I guess I don't know if I have an answer to it, but I would like to hear what the issue in particular is on Parmley Park and possibly how I can assist in this.
I've been there every day for 20 years. My three golden retrievers. Excuse me. We need them to come up to the mic.
Oh.
Stand up close.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, Gary Nelson, Lambertville. I've been at that park for 20 years with 3 golden retrievers. Never. I'm looking away. Where are the helicopters overhead with their beaming lights saying, problem here? It's never been a problem. It's been locked up more than it's been open. And then you fix it up 3 years ago or so, and now you're going to tear it down. And you got, the dumpsters are already there, guys.
So I'm going to give you a little backup here because it's a township issue, right? So Bedford Township board meetings, they have park board meetings, and that decision was made at the park board level. He has nothing to do with a park board. So this was more, I'm assuming, more for the district, the county of Monroe, and what's going on in Lansing across the state. So I'm just giving him a little background, backup on that. If you're concerned about the park, the skate park, that's the park board at Bedford Township and the Bedford Township board meetings that are twice a month. Not sure when they are, but I'm just going to let you know he probably doesn't have a ton of information regarding that specific decision that was made in Bedford Township. So just, you can voice your opinion all you want, and then I would suggest going to a park board meeting or a township meeting here. That happens here. I can look that up for you. Yeah, I'll get that to you. I'll look it up.
Okay. And is that sometimes township issues are a local issue? I have no idea about the Parmley Park and the difficulties. It sounds like it's been closed down or is not open enough, or the skate park.
No, it's not good. My fault. Yeah, no, I'll listen next time. No, so I think most of the problems we have as riders is we get kicked out of street spots a lot. We get a lot of problems for riding stair sets, just obstacles we're not supposed to, and it starts a lot of weird scenarios, where you're beefing with some older guy, or, you're running into, the homeless crazy guy or something. And Parmley doesn't really get taken care of, so that's what everybody's making a fuss about, is because they keep it open and they close it so much that it's starting to kind of become an issue where we don't have a consistent place to ride because the place is either always locked or not taken care of or not up to par, and definitely not up to riding standard. Those are kids, so I feel like, I don't know if it's my jurisdiction to give them a place to ride, but I know that you need to produce bike lanes, and stuff for people to enjoy and, be safe, You don't want them riding in the middle of Myers or nothing weird, But that's all I had to really say about it,
No, and that's very good, very well spoken. And Josh will definitely, okay, he has the times for the park board meeting.
Yeah, we just heard about it yesterday getting messed up.
Yeah, so from me paying attention a little bit to the park board, I think that had been a process. It's been going on for a long time, those discussions to tear it down. What I found was it meets, the park board meets the second and the fourth Monday of each month at 7 p.m. And here's the tricky part. It's either at the car park community room or it's at one of the other parks, so it sounds like they might rotate locations. What I would do... What's that? Next meeting Car Park. Okay, so next meeting's at Car Parks at 7 o'clock, the second and the fourth Mondays of each month. And then there's also general questions that you can reach out to the board. It says parkboard@bedfordmi.org. And then there's a phone number if you need it, 734-224-7329.
Can you repeat the number one more time for me, my man?
The number?
Yeah, one more time.
Yep. 734-224-7329.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Appreciate that, Josh. Thank you. So Josh Stump is the legislative director for Representative Zorn in Lenawee County. So he's good at finding info. That's his job, helping out his representative. So I appreciate you being here tonight, Josh. That's a huge help. Yeah, I would recommend. So as a state rep, sometimes we get into some touchy issues where I'm a big local control person. I believe townships should, determine their destiny. Townships should take care of themselves. Townships should, internally take care of issues like parks and things of that nature, unless there's grant money or something that I as a state rep can assist in getting. That's probably where I would come in something like this, is trying to set up or get them in contact with the right people if they're looking for grants or looking for something, within the state budget that's available. As far as the operations, that's where, me as, it's kind of like a family. I have my family in Erie, and I'm not going to tell my brother who lives, north up in Carlton how to, what to do with his children, kind of thing. That's kind of how I see townships. They're separate families, they're communities, and they're supposed to take care of themselves. There is a lot of, people say there's a lot of dysfunction on the local level. I wouldn't call it dysfunction per se. I would say it's a process that has to be worked out. And things like parks and that are generally taken care of, paid for by local tax dollars. And that would definitely be a local issue, but I would encourage you guys to go to a park board meeting and make your case known as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. I appreciate it too.
And then if there's something that I can step in and help with, I'm there. I will do everything I can. Appreciate it. Now open up if there's any other things anyone would want to mention before I guess I get to what I wanted to talk about regarding energy. Yes, sir. Brave enough to come up. Come on up.
Something like that, right?
Yes, sir.
So now bear with me. This is my first time public speaking, but this is something I'm extremely passionate about, and I myself and others have been riding that park for many years. And it's been such a healthy outlet. Action sports is one of the few things that bring people together from all walks of life, whether it be BMX, scootering, skateboarding. We all share a very common interest, and I think it's something beautiful. I couldn't imagine not having that outlet. And this is not only affecting the locals, but also the others from surrounding areas like myself. And, this is the only unsafe environment we've ever really had. And I think it would be a real shame if we were to lose that. Now, by taking it away, this particular park, I feel like we're losing a very safe environment for kids to pursue their passion, but also destroying such a big part of this community's history. And I would just hate to see that happen.
Very good for the first time.
We just heard about it yesterday, so we were like, we got to get something together and figure something out.
You guys are awesome. You guys are amazing. That's really awesome.
Yeah, I'm Ralph, and I went in the military at 17 in 1965. Navy, Vietnam veteran. Got out in 68, because you had 3 years. But did you know, and I'm so happy to see the young guys here, you didn't have the right to vote until you were 21. It was till 1971 they changed it to 18. A lot of the guys that got drafted could not elect anybody in Washington and everybody starting those wars. here you guys are doing your thing. 18-year-olds can vote, but you could get drafted and go get killed and not have the right to vote. How stupid is that? That changed. So you're changing stuff now. Except these stupid electric cars, man. You see how many SUVs are on the road around here and trucks? Everybody loves their pickup trucks, man. You know, ain't going to work. You got to go tell Gretchen, Governor Gretchen. She's pretty good looking, but, you know, kind of thing. Straighten them out. Just call me up.
Well, I appreciate your comments, Ralph.
Yeah. I can bring a couple other guys that are still around.
Well, we appreciate your service, and it brings up quite a point. You know, our country has changed a lot since the 60s. I think a lot of ways much, much better than we were. We have progressed as a country in many, many ways. We've digressed in other ways, but, you know, Americans are tenacious. We're hardworking, historically. We figure ways to do things that are impossible to do. So tonight I did want to talk about energy. And I wanted to talk about, you know, I wanted to give my backgrounds because, number one, I believe the most important thing that anyone can do as a U.S. citizen is to vote. I truly believe that. I don't care where they live or where they're from or how they vote. You know, as Ralph said, he was fighting for the rights and the freedoms. Yet at that time he wasn't even allowed to vote. You know, you think of that irony. And I meet a lot of people that are not registered to vote. There's a lot of people that don't vote. They've never voted in their lifetime. And I tell them, I didn't necessarily fight. I'm not going to try to convince you to register yourself to vote, but many people like I and others have suffered, lost their lives, and spent time away from home for you to have the right to, for lack of better terms, be part of the political process in our country. And the way things happen are one vote at a time. And I believe the local vote is the most important vote. When you vote for a supervisor or township officials or a school board, you vote in a small community. Bedford is one of the largest communities. It's the largest community in our county. You know, 34-ish thousand people live, maybe 35,000. I don't know, Josh. It's in that range. People live in Bedford and vote in Bedford. But how many people actually vote in an election? A mere few thousand out of that amount. So when you vote in your local elections, your vote matters more here than it matters in Lansing or Washington. The most important people you can elect are the people that your vote counts the most for, and that's here. And I think in that respect, as a state representative, the most important people in my district are locally elected officials. Whether I agree with them or I disagree with them, they represent the people that I represent. And so I try to do things that make their voice more important than my voice. And so I did want to talk, one of my scheduled agenda items to talk to you tonight. I don't want to wax eloquent about what am I doing in Lansing. The most important thing I can do is here. So the energy bills were passed last year. There was a number of energy bills that actually take effect today, February 13th, which is actually the 4-month anniversary of my hip replacement. I had my hip replaced 4 months ago, thanks to the military. Thanks to the military, I had a bad hip, and then thanks to the military, I got fixed 4 months ago. But last year, there was a set of energy bills that were passed that set a lot of standards within the state of Michigan for energy generation, energy distribution, a lot of requirements for the power companies. And also within that set of laws, or set of bills, was a bill that specifically talked about the zoning for both wind, solar, and battery storage. This set of laws, or this law, essentially has taken away the ability for townships to regulate 100 megawatt or larger solar, wind, and the 50 megawatt battery storage facilities. And that was passed on straight partisan votes. It passed with the, every, not to be political, I try to be middle of the road, but it passed with every Democrat vote, and every Republican voted no. It passed in the House with 56 votes, which is the bare minimum to pass. There were a number of people that voted yes that prior to that publicly stated they were not going to vote for it. But it did pass. It's now the law of Michigan. It was signed and it went into effect 90 days after we ended session. So it is now the law. In this, we can, I'm not an anti-solar guy. I'm not an anti-wind guy. I'm not an anti-battery or, even electric car guy. I think technology moves as technology moves. But I believe the legislation that was passed put some very strict regulations on our industry, our electrical industry, that is very, very going to be very hard to attain. It restricts nuclear to 20%. We're already at 20%. Monroe County produces more power than any other county in the state, with the coal power plant in Monroe and Fermi. We generate a lot of power here, a lot more than we use. The coal power plant is scheduled to be closed in a number of years. There's every few years there's a new step or a percentage that has to be either renewable or clean energy. The goal within the laws is to get rid of even natural gas. Clean energy, clean burning natural gas, but the biggest thing I worry about, or the biggest concern I have, is the fact that townships throughout our county, throughout the state, pass resolutions or ordinances within their local communities that regulated wind, solar, not necessarily battery storage, but wind and solar fields. They provided setbacks. They required it on either industrial or commercial ground. And if you own farmland, there's, over the last couple years, there's been a lot of petitioning of farmers or people that own land. And most farmers don't own the land that they farm. They rent it, they lease it. They've put a lot of pressure using money, to try to get lease agreements with people that own land. I'll ask you your question in just a minute. Give me just a moment. But this law essentially takes away the ability of a township to decide for themselves in their own master planning where they want solar or wind. Now, they did put an amendment in the law that I'll call it a hollow amendment. So if a solar company has the leasing agreements and they have enough acreage, and it takes 100 acres, approximately 100 acres of solar field to create 100 megawatts of power on a good day. And it's debatable what's a good day, bad day. I mean, in January we had 8% sun in Michigan. There's very few good days. But it's approximately 100 acres to create 100 megawatts. The Monroe coal-fired plant creates 3,400 megawatts of power. That's a lot of power. In the amendment that they did add at the end, a solar company or someone, and most of these companies are from out of state. I spoke with DTE today, and just kind of dinged them like, so how much are you guys out trying to get land? He essentially said, we're all set. We have the land that we need. Most of the companies that are coming in are out-of-state companies that are coming in to set up solar fields in order to sell that to DTE and consumers for a profit. But if a company wants to come in and set up a solar field, they come to the township and say, we want to set up, we have this square mile, or we have this 100, 200 acres, we want to do a solar field. In Bedford Township, they pass an ordinance on the setbacks, etc. And they come to the township, and the township has a choice. They can either change their ordinances to fit that request, agree with that request, or that company then can take it to the Public Service Commission. And if the Public Service Commission approves that permit, it doesn't matter what the community says. That solar field is going in that community, exactly how they want it, or how the Public Service Commission allows them to put it in. Now, I've heard a number of things. You know, they can build them above ground. They can make it so you can farm under. But I spoke with not a legislator, but a legislative aide that is working in the electrical industry. And within this law, there is no restrictions on how they build the solar fields. They can build them so you cannot farm under them. They could build them as high, high enough where there is some ability to farm underneath. But there's nothing in the law that says they have to do either. The cheapest way is to put it on the ground. But it's going to be up to Lansing telling us, and I live in Erie. We have a large solar field. I think it's the third largest in the state. If I may be wrong, I believe it's the third. I know it's in the top 5. Largest solar field. That was put in, and then Erie passed a resolution with the setbacks and things that really restricted where they could put more solar fields. But with this, in my township of Erie, and I live on a rural road, a lot of farmland, a lot of heritage farms that have been there for 80 plus, 100 plus years. If a company comes to my township with a proposal in hand, they give it to the township has a choice. They agree or they don't agree. If they agree, it goes in as planned. If they disagree, this packet goes up to the Public Service Commission to get reviewed. And I guess the Public Service Commission could say, no, you can't do it. But given the current climate in Lansing and the current, I'll say, the timeline that the state has set with the other legislation, there's no way we can meet that timeline without adding hundreds of square miles of solar fields in the state. So the Public Service Commission is going to do what is best for Michigan to meet the guidelines of those laws and to hit those incremental points to where we get to clean energy. So that is my pitch. That is what I wanted to bring to you. And I also wanted to say, I put out that there are things going on in our state that can assist us in getting back local control in this area. And as I said at the beginning, I'm purely for the local control. I ran on the basis of community, family. That's what I ran on because that's what I believe, that's what I've lived. And as a representative, I had no say in that legislation, not one iota. I don't sit on the Energy Committee. I sit on the Infrastructure Committee. I sit on the Insurance and Banking Committee. I sit on the Higher Education Committee. I was a trustee at Monroe County Community College. They have a large solar field there that they did a partnership with DTE to install that. It was a partnership. It was a community-based thing. It works. I don't believe solar is evil or bad. I don't believe it's something we should shield ourselves from. But there's a place for local individuals and townships to have a voice in what occurs in their township. With this legislation, there's a number of things that I believe, and again, this is my opinion, and take it as it is. Farmers, the average lease that a farmer pays is 150, 200, maybe 250 an acre to a landowner. Most farmers don't farm their own land. They may own 100 acres, a couple hundred acres. They're farming 700, 800, 1,000 plus. They're leasing all that land. The solar companies or the wind companies are offering $1,200 to $1,500 an acre. It puts the farmer, and I understand there's people that own land, have heritage farms. It's hard to farm. It's always been a hard industry. It's the number 3 or number 2 industry in Michigan is farming, agriculture. Depends on where the autos are. Autos range between 2 and 3. But agriculture is our top 3. It's always in the top 3. I'm afraid this legislation will, in some people's minds, it's going to help secure the family farm because it does give diversity and income stream. But my fear is that it will destroy family farm. I spoke to Mr. Rulig, John Rulig. I don't know if you know of Rulig Farms. The vast majority of their farms or land that they farm is leased. His fear, and I think it's a warranted fear, is that they're going to shut down. There's no way they can compete with that type of cost increase. They can't afford to pay $1,200, $1,500 an acre to lease land to farm it. They're making it, on that $150 to $250 range. So my fear is that it may help some farmers that get in on the good, or landowners that get in on the good and they make a good lease. They're set for 25, 30 years. After that, there's no guarantees on the bonds on these. What happens when these solar panels are no good anymore? There's a lot of questions because the law doesn't guarantee that there's an escrow account. And I had that looked over by a lawyer. So I'm afraid of the family farms disappearing. I'm afraid of the landscape of our townships disappearing. We live in, Bedford has a lot more subdivisions than most in our county. We all enjoy the land, our agricultural society that we have, and I'm afraid that will disappear. And again, this is my opinion. It's just my humble opinion. We can debate whether solar fields look ugly or not. That's debatable. We can debate whether or not, they cause, some kind of pollution or something. I'm not here to debate that. Wind towers can be debated on what they do to migratory birds, etc. But I'm not here to debate that. What I'm here to get your feedback and to talk about is what can we as a township do? Or what can you, I should say you, I live in Erie Township. What can we as a district do? What can we as a state do? And so I will say that there is an organization called Citizens for Local Choice. I, as a state representative, am not participating in that. I, as a Joe citizen, Will Bruck citizen, am participating in that. That this is a way, if we get enough signatures on petitions, and I leave that to people to get, others to get the signatures. But if we can get enough signatures to get on the ballot and put it up to a vote, that gives you a voice. And I think people should have a voice. This particular legislation was passed strict party lines with the barest amount of majority to get it through and very quickly signed. So with that being said, I'll open it up for any comments or questions. Right in the front.
Yeah, hi. Thanks again. Thanks for bringing this up until I saw the article in the Bedford Press. I didn't know about the legislation. I mean, most of us are busy. We don't track what's going on in Lansing. It's pretty complicated. If you've ever been on the website to see what's going on, it's incredibly obtuse. It's impossible. At least it has been for me. Just want to clarify. You're talking about House Bill 5120. Was that or Josh, is that the one that?
He's talking about the law. It's PA 233.
It's a public act now.
Public Act.
Yeah.
And that's based on what? Was that the bills that you said were passed, the legislation that was passed and voted on? What's that act number? PA?
PA 233 and 234.
233, 234. Okay.
That's what the local control wants to reveal.
So what and again, and thank you. I just, a half an hour before, we came here, I started to try and educate myself. So this is what I came across is, and tell me if this is not correct, is that it requires developers to go through localities first when applying for permits. So the process, the locals would set up a process, and as long as it matches similar state standards, the developer would be required to go through this process. As long as the township has a legitimate technical or health issue, communities would not be forced to host unwanted renewable projects. Additionally, the bills do not contain an eminent domain aspect, meaning someone's property would not be taken in order to site renewable energy, and that only happens if a landowner can voluntarily decide if they want to put something like the folks in Erie. I forget their name. But I know that was a lease.
Oh, you're talking about the...
Where the solar farm is now. Yeah, I drive by it almost every day. Right. So, I mean, that was their property. They exercised that choice. I'm all about property rights. I think we all are. So again, I'm going to educate myself on these two public acts. And you pointed out that, this was voted on along party lines, which is disappointing, but that's kind of the way things are now. But one aspect that I kept coming across, again, just doing cursory research tonight before I got here, was this gentleman, his name keeps coming up, Kevon Martis, and he's almost like a paid consultant against solar, and I mean, he's been doing this for years. Has he any involvement in what you're doing, or have you met with him, or?
I have not met with him. He is involved with the Citizens for Local Choice.
Okay.
The organization is out of Lenawee County. They were the driver for this.
Okay.
It is now, I believe, based on, they have an office in Lansing. I don't know if he's like getting paid. I don't know that. He is involved with the Citizens for Local Choice.
All right. I came across, and again, I don't know the gentleman. Again, before tonight, I had no idea this was going on, but I came across just a lot of information where, he's a paid consultant for oil companies, opponents of solar and wind. So whether or not that's true, and I guess I also want to say I didn't have anything against lobbyists. The industry that I worked in 30 years ago, we needed to hire a lobbyist because there was legislation that was going to be passed that was detrimental to our industry. That's the whole purpose of it. We want, if you're in industry, you want folks that can go up, talk to people like you and say, here's our perspective. Okay, would you listen to us? At least give you that. So again, I have nothing against lobbyists and so forth. But from what I started reading, again, just tonight, like an hour ago, there wasn't a lot of positive things about that gentleman, and it could be slanted. I'll certainly educate myself. We all should do that. Yeah, so I will look at these, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this. And
absolutely.
get us
I'll
here.
say, my experience in Lansing it's the oddest place you could ever think of going to work. You go there, there's 110 in the House, 47 in the Senate, right? I think it's 40-ish, 47 in the Senate. You know, just over 150 legislators in Lansing, and there's thousands of people that they get paid each and every day to be there to try to get people to vote. 48, sorry, I was one off. Their only job in life is to try to get 150, 60 people to vote a certain way. Actually, they only need just over half to vote a certain way. You know, they get paid, and they get paid by different industries. And if you can think of anything that's grown, made, or done in Michigan, there's a lobbyist in Lansing that represents them. Where they grow okra or asparagus or build widgets or build chairs, there's an organization that represents them. Pretty, yes, sir. Oh, I should have had the little guy. I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to, I didn't know you were from Erie, so I wanted to enlighten. Can people hear me here? Fine. But in Erie, that Temperance Road solar farm, that was on 100 acres. And that was really, they negotiated that before the guy from Riga you were talking about got involved with this stuff. And so on that piece of property, I want to first up before I want to say that this local control, the farmers lost local control before this PA 233 was passed, because the farmers didn't have any control. These groups that you were talking to came into these communities, and they disrupted the communities, spread a lot of misinformation, as you're finding out, because you're doing what everybody should do and research all this. And they found out that what these guys were saying is a lot of misinformation. They found funding to do mailings to people, and they stir up whole communities, and they had recalled elected officials, and the farmers had no say on their property rights. That's loss of local control. There's three types of zoning. You got residential, basically three types: residential, agricultural, and industrial. In Bedford, most of your grounds is now residential. This local control is not going to affect you. Doesn't affect the residential people at all. It's agricultural people. That's where most of these projects are going to be built, on agricultural land. The landowners, as it stands right now, have no say, because this person and these groups, these outside groups, came into these communities and destroyed their rights as farmers, as landowning farmers. So let's talk about your Temperance Road solar farm. As a solar farm, or as a farm, it was a hayfield. I think it was a hayfield before it was zoned agricultural. It was for sale for about 15 years. Well, it was a hayfield. It was farmed. The tax bill on it, I have the tax bills. It was paying $44.50 a year in taxes, right? The first year it became a solar farm, between personal property tax and value as a solar farm, it was paying $296,000 a year. This is the opportunity you're losing by supporting this local control. You're losing all this money. You're going to lose the coal plant in 2035. They've already reduced the taxes they're paying. The Fermi plant has reduced their taxes that they've been paying. And so you're losing all this tax base, and then you're going to chase this economic opportunity away from your townships and your community. It's suicide to do this. You need the tax base. Bedford's not going to be affected basically by this, but your county needs money, taxes to come in. That's a huge amount of money that you're going to be turning away. And they say, oh, they don't work. Well, I beg to differ. No one would be investing in solar and wind if they didn't work. They just wouldn't do it. So that's not true. I'm just saying, you know, you're working with that Dan Regato. Dan Regato, he's one of the guys that works for this Noda Solar Group. He's the one that caused these. He had 15 townships in Monroe. 14 of them have exclusionary zoning where you can't build any solar. And that's why the state stepped in, because they have goals to meet with green energy, and they had to do this because of that guy that you're working with. So, so I'm just saying, I wouldn't sign that local control ordinance petition. These guys are most of them are going to be paid petitioners.
That's false. Number one, there are no paid petitioners.
You don't know that yet. You can't say in the future if they get desperate they will pay them. I heard some funding's coming in for you guys from the Farm Bureau. I don't know, but I just heard this tonight. I can't. Allegedly, you're getting a big chunk of money from outside sources. I was a paid petition gatherer at one time. I know how it works. You can tell anybody just about anything, and they'll sign. And because most people, like you, doing your research, you're doing your job. They're not involved. You can tell people about anything, and they'll sign. So I'm saying, don't sign that thing. You're cutting your own throats. This green energy is coming.
Appreciate the comments.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. I would just say,
Blood sugar is dropping, but before we leave, I believe in renewable energy. I hate to see any hindrances to that happening. And that's what this feels like.
okay, I appreciate the comment.
And I really appreciate you being here to talk about it and to listen to us. We have to think about our children, our grandchildren, and we have to be aware. And as this gentleman said, and as you said, we have to educate ourselves and see what lies ahead. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, sir. He brought up a few comments or a couple good points. This is a wake-up call, for our communities and our townships. He'll say, I did mention Dan Regato. I have met with Dan Regato. He's from Monroe County. He lives in Monroe County. Dan Regato was concerned, and I was not involved with the Save Our Farm group, and that's, I believe, the group that he was.
No to solar.
No to solar, Save Our Farms. There was a number of things. Erie Township was woken up. I'll say they were woke up when they realized that a big solar field went in Erie Township. There was a lot of individuals that were not happy with that. Regardless of, your view on solar and if it works, we are moving toward a more renewable future. But I believe these laws created something that the industry would have done on its own at some point and put in artificial guidelines that the industry itself, if you get them on the personal level, say they cannot meet. And the only way our state could meet that was by taking away the ability of local communities to set their own guidelines. And yes, some communities are very restrictive. You don't want a landfill in your community. Get it. The community fights it. I lived in Carlton when they were fighting a landfill. When I was a kid, I remember my parents talking about it. We don't want aggregate fields. That's another thing. Short-term leasing. We as townships set our own agenda because we believe in our own community. And what I want to see, or what I feel, is that local knows best. And there may be arguments over what can be placed on agricultural. A community zones it thus because they want it to stay agricultural. They want to keep that aspect of their township. Bedford Township, yes, has rezoned a lot of agricultural as residential. I've been to meetings where they're doing it, and there's arguing going on over whether this plot of land can be changed from agricultural to residential. And there's a tax base that comes with that that's higher than agriculture is the lowest tax base you can have in a community. Solar does give money, a lot of money. Go to Charter Township, Monroe Charter Township, they got $500,000 last year from all the marijuana distribution companies. That's a choice that township made. Most townships in Monroe County opted out of that. The Charter Township opted in, and a couple other communities, Luna Pier did. And they do get tax dollars from that. But as a community, they had to make a choice. And so all I say is that we can choose to let Lansing make a choice for us based off the guidelines that they put in place that we had no say in the matter. I don't sit on the Energy Committee, but I talk to the legislators that do sit on the Energy Committee. It was not a, you think a committee, when you think a committee, you think of 10, 12 people getting together and talking about a solution to a problem. That's not how it worked in Lansing last year. In a committee, you're brought the law. Many times, you're not even allowed to ask questions. If you don't control the gavel, and that's exactly what happened in the Energy Committee. There was numerous people there to testify that were not allowed to testify. They wanted to just rush these bills through. I say there's an agenda, yes. They want Michigan to be 100% either renewable or clean energy. But I ask the question, why in Arizona do they only produce 10% of their power from solar? All it is desert. They have sun 365. Maybe not quite 365, but if any place should be producing their power from solar, it should be Arizona or other said, western, southwestern states. I believe Michigan has come to a point. Well, we can talk about Texas and what happened with their windmills when they froze.
Oh, no, they didn't freeze.
When the wind isn't blowing, they have to send electricity. They have to power the windmills to turn, because if they sit still too long, the bearings go bad because of the weight of the blades. And I'm not against wind. I'm not against solar. You want to put solar on your house? You are free to do that unless you live in a HOA that doesn't allow it. But now we passed, I don't know if it passed the Senate, it passed the House, where the state says that an HOA cannot keep someone from putting solar panels on their roof or in their yard. Again, the state's dictating what even an HOA, which is probably the smallest government you ever find in America, what they can or cannot do when those people, those individuals move into a HOA and sign a piece of paper saying, I'll abide by it. There is an agenda. There is a movement. But I'll call it a false movement. To push Michigan to that 100% level is going to take away a lot of farmland. Good, bad, or indifferent, some landowners will make a lot of money and retire happy. Other farmers will be run out of business because they can't afford to farm. I think that should be the community's choice. And I don't believe farmers don't have a voice. Every person lives in a township. It takes communication. And if there's outside people coming in, as I said, I didn't go around petitioning townships to go one way or the other. I go to a township meeting, I listen. That's what I do, I listen. And I try to find issues that I can assist with or help with. But I do want to get the little guy up here because I apologize again, I overlooked you. So why don't you come on, can you come on up?
Yeah. Well, I'm changing the subject by coming up here and talking about Parmley Skate Park.
Okay.
I just want to say that there's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears put into that park, and I've fell, broken things, had so many ER trips because of that park, and
I'm sorry.
Riding the bike's fun, but the hospital bills aren't. But we love that park. I go there practically every day, no matter what the weather is, because I love being there. I love the energy it brings to me, the joy. And that's all I really have to say. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate you being here, sir.
Brave young lady. How old are you?
I'm 14.
14. Brave soul. I just thought of something with this Parmley Park. I think a cost, I don't know how much it's going to cost to fix it or upkeep it, etc. But with communication comes solution. And maybe it's something that as a community, if there's a cost that the township says it takes X amount of dollars to fix or upkeep this, and with the passion you guys have, maybe you can find sponsors and make it not just a public sponsored park, but bring in private sponsors that can help, because people in the community want people to love their community. As a business owner and as just a citizen in my community, I want people to enjoy the community. And you guys are very brave to come on up. You got passion. Come up with a solution through conversation. And I think you go to that Public Parks Board, get some good information and what the costs are, and then start reaching out to businesses. Because I know a lot of business owners in Bedford Township that might be willing to stick out a few dollars to help you guys get it back to where it needs to be so it's open.
We appreciate you guys a lot for hearing us out today. It's new stuff.
No, you guys, I appreciate you guys coming. That really made my day.
Well, I learned a lot about stuff here too today, like necessarily like just about the whole like farming stuff, agricultural, and just like I don't know the way you was talking about zoning and stuff, and yeah, I was kind of understanding what was going on. So you're telling me that basically the farmers are losing land because solar companies are leasing out what? Like land, right? To have solar, yeah. Okay, I get what's going on.
Yeah, and a lot of these companies are from out of state, and so both sides have extremes. There's people that believe solar doesn't work and it's evil, etc. There's people on the other side that think coal or natural gas is evil and we should never use it. Somewhere in between, there's a solution. You know, when the horse was here and the Howard buggy started coming, there was people who said that's the stupidest idea ever, it scares the horses, it's never going to work, etc., etc. And look where we're at today. There are electric cars. There's EVs. I drive a hybrid. It gets great mileage. I don't drive an EV for a personal reason. I don't want to ever get stranded. I'm in the middle. You know, I get the best of both worlds. But when you force people to buy a certain product, or I'll say in another way, when you only give them the option to buy what you want them to buy, that's not the way our republic was founded. And that's where I believe we have a voice and we get involved. And I never got involved in politics, and I hate that word, elected office, until after COVID, after I was a business owner, and watching what government shutdowns did to my business, and watching what happened in our own state government where the unemployment insurance agency was just doling out dollars to people that were quitting. I had a quarter of my workforce quit in 3 weeks. And they went on unemployment and got paid more than I never laid anyone off. And we had multiple clients that were left without caregivers because people just quit. And they didn't quit, they just left. They didn't show up. And I watched our state government, and they got dinged hard. They did the wrong thing. But it was free money from the federal government. And that's how they viewed it. And that director was canned. New director came in. They cleaned a lot of things up. But it killed a lot of small businesses, such as mine. And I saw that as, why don't we have business people up in Lansing? Who's going to run? Why don't we have normal people run? I don't want a politician. I don't want someone up there looking for a career to be governor, to be this or that. And then I looked in the mirror and said, why not you? Then I talked to my wife. I just mentioned it one time. Honey, I'm thinking about running for TC's seat. Because TC Clements was my state rep, and he was running for Senate as an open seat. All I mentioned was, I'm thinking about possibly running for TC's seat. 20 minutes later, she finished talking. It was not a good conversation. But over the next month, we learned a lot. We looked into things. And you know, as I said, she thought I'd have to live up there. You know, we had no idea what it meant. But I wanted to get involved. Never did I think I'd be doing what I'm doing. But I do enjoy it. Anyway, I'm talking a lot. There was another question. Ma'am?
I just had a question about, by signing this petition,
Excuse me. Excuse me. We have to come up to the.
Oh. Sorry about that. I should be reminding you too.
So it seems to me that we don't know signing this petition or not signing. We don't even know what the petition says. If somebody came up to me with a petition and spewed forth something, I have 15 seconds to sign or not to sign.
I can speak to that as a gatherer.
Exactly. And
I've done it before.
so what's confusing for people is they throw this line out for this petition. What exactly is the petition? I'm not finished, but I want to get it all out there so we get an answer to it. So what exactly does this petition say? What exactly does it do? Does it stand a chance of passing in a divided Lansing? Does it address the fact that by giving up local control to this Public Utilities Board, does this Public Service Commission, does this petition limit the Public Service Commission ability to change what the local people want? Because if an issue comes to the local commission, to the local people, and they say no, then the next step is the organization takes it to this Public Service Commission, and they have the ultimate say. So it's almost as though, are these Public Service Commission, are they elected, are they appointed?
They are appointed
They're
by
appointed
the governor.
by the governor. So they're going to do what the governor wants, regardless of what local people want.
But there's
That would be
14
my
states-
interpretation.
14 states have siting boards. 14 states, and a lot of it happens. There's 14 states I believe around 14 states in the United States that have siting boards, and they have these contentious issues because local communities, they don't know what the truth is.
Right.
And these outside groups come in here, and they're lobbying, and they're spreading misinformation, and they mail people, residents in the township, misinformation, and they get everybody upset, and then the board, they can't make it. They just want it to go away. A lot of people, or they believe it, and a lot of that stuff's not true. And the same thing with this gathering. They're being coached right now. They're not supposed to be talking about green energy. I can tell you that right now. They want to keep the subject on local control because the people that live in residential areas are not going to be affected by this stuff.
Well, let me answer your questions that you had, ma'am.
Okay.
So the petition rescinds the portion of the law that took away local control. It reassigns that back at the local level. The petition, when you sign a
At the local level, or does this have to pass the entire state?
Oh, what happens when you sign a petition? So you have to get a certain percentage of the last gubernatorial race. In our case, there has to be 350-ish thousand signatures, valid signatures, to get it on the ballot. In last year's election, you remember there was proposal 1, 2, and 3. So there had to be X amount of petitions turned in. I would assume it's about the same, 300,500 petitions.
So by signing this petition, we get a certain, if we get the appropriate percentage, it will be a ballot issue?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So then it goes up to the entire state at the next election. It all depends on the timeline. They have 180 days to get the required petitions in, the required signatures, in a timely manner. And if they get those in, then it goes up to the entire state to say yes or no. So when you sign a petition, you're not saying yes or no to solar. You're not saying you're anti-solar. You're not saying you're pro-solar. You're saying that I would like to see this on the ballot.
Okay.
And this particular petition rescinds the portion of the law that took away local control. And the amendment that was added for local control by
Reggie Miller.
Representative Reggie Miller. It gives the locals a say, but ultimately the Public Service Commission makes that decision.
Right.
Because if a local community does not change their ordinance to allow what they're wanting to place in that township, They petition the Public Service Commission, and the Public Service Commission says yay or nay. Now, there's timelines in there. There's a process. But in the end, the only choice that a local township has is to say yes or no. Either way, they have no choice in the matter.
Pretty much.
Because if they say yes, it's going in. Okay, I guess that's a choice. If they say no, it's going to the Public Service Commission, and in my estimation, it's going in.
Right.
Because the state has to do this in order to meet the requirements that they placed in the other laws.
Right.
Now people say, well, if we rescind this portion of law, it's going to throw the whole thing out of whack. You know what? It will. And that will force individuals that want solar fields or wind fields to work with the local communities in order to give them the information to allow them to do it. That's how it's supposed to work. Now, it was mentioned that, Bedford has nothing to worry about. In the bills, 50 megawatt battery storage facilities can be approved by the Public Service Commission. Anything under 100 megawatt on the wind and solar, anything under 50 megawatt on the storage, that's still up to the township. Guarantee that will change. I can't guarantee, but in my estimation, that will change. A 50 megawatt battery storage facility can be placed on a mere few acres. No fire department in this state has the ability to fight an emergency if there was one. Not that they're made to have one, but where are they going to build battery storage facilities? Some may be built near the power plants, if you will, the solar fields, wind fields. The problem with wind fields and solar fields is you need infrastructure. I was a lineman. I understand grid, distribution, transmission. Understand substations. Most of the grid, the high-density grid, is in high-density areas. Where are they going to build battery storage facilities? In the high-density areas where it takes the least amount of money to run that infrastructure for that backup storage. That's just a fact of life. That's the way it will be. Where is that? The city of Monroe is very worried about this. They don't want a battery storage in their town. The township of Bedford should be worried about that.
I'd argue. I think they put substations all over the place, and it's no different than a substation, and people don't fight that. I think you're painting it with a pretty dark brush. Most of this stuff is about solar farms. It's all agricultural land. There's no land in Bedford that's going to be a big enough area for them to build a green energy project. And these petitions are a public document too. Don't let them tell you any different. They have your name. They know how you sign these things. So you're registered. So you might want to.
Appreciate the comments.
Okay.
Petitions are available after this meeting. I have petitions available if you want to read one. There's a lot of language that had to be approved by the state. So it's quite a process to get it. It's actually very, very difficult to get a petition through the system in order to get it. I mean, whether it was proposal 1, 2, or 3 last year, it went to court. It was a long extended period of time. Same for this petition. It took a lot of work to get it through the system. The language has to be a certain way. It has to be understandable.
Right.
There's a shortened version on the front. There's an elongated version on the back of every petition. And you have to make that available when you're getting signatures. But, right or wrong, I believe in local choice. And I will always go back to that. I believe in property rights, absolutely. But a township still is a government that is for the entire township. And just because you have, a handful of people in the township that want it one way, it doesn't mean they should always get their way. Whether it's a solar field, whether it's a landfill, whether it's a quarry, whether it's short-term leasing, which that's a big issue in Erie. Trust me, I've been to many a meeting there about short-term leasing. Do we want to control that, or do we want the state to control that? That's really the question it comes down to. I hope this was informative for you. I do appreciate everyone that was here, everyone that spoke. I do appreciate the input, the backfeed, and that's, I'll take that, and we'll get better. Again, I'm not I want to focus on, I'm not anti-solar. I have friends, I actually fixed my friend's solar panel box. The switch box was messed up and fixed it for them. And it cuts their energy a good amount when the sun shines. You know, there is a positive thing to it. I'm definitely not against it. What I'm against is the state coming in and telling us what to do. And so, again, if they outlaw the combustible internal, the internal combustion engine, ICE, you know, if they only make EVs available, I would be against that too. You know, but they haven't. Will they one day? I don't know. Maybe they will. But we'll fight that fight when it comes. I'm really a small government person. I believe smaller is better. And I think the smallest form of government is the best way to legislate where we move as a community, or where you move as a community. You're all mostly Bedford residents here. So I appreciate you coming out. If there's any more comments or questions, I will stick around. Holy smokes. It's 8:27.
Time to go to bed.
Like I have nefarious reasons, but you know, it's politics. That's how I think politics occur. When people have the votes to get something through, they want to get it through as quickly as possible. From both sides, Republican, Democrat, they both operate the same sometimes. I mean, I hear that Lansing was much different 2 years ago versus last year. There's a lot more cooperation and involvement on the committee level. As far as, you know, when they got the votes, they want to push it through. And that's the less opportunity you give for news reports and releasing information, you know, they'd rather deal with that after the fact. I think, will you concur, Josh?
I'm sure there's plenty of times when it goes to the committee and quite a few state reps haven't read the bill at all. They might rely on somebody in the back room that have, they don't really understand.
You guys end up getting the heat because you were forced to do something that you didn't want to do without knowing what you were doing.
Yeah, I'll give an example today. We were forced 2 bills. They were bills to extend the amount of time that a financial institution has to hold a veteran's funds if he's deployed. It's currently set at 3 years. They want to make it 5 years. This bill was not given to us until today. They called it a veteran bill, but the fact is it's unnecessary. There's no veteran, there's no reservist or National Guardsman that's deployed for 3 years or more. But they tried to put us in a place by forcing us to vote on a bill that, you know, had veteran in the name. Not a bad bill per se, except it puts more pressure on financial institutions. And it didn't pass. Now, for me as a veteran, they tried to put me in a very tight spot because they know we as the minority party, you know, there's a lot of politics that's played in Lansing. And in this particular bill, they don't have the votes because we're 54-54, tied in the House. You need 55 to pass any bill. So they put this up, and I wasn't going to vote no on a veteran bill, but I wasn't going to vote yes on a bill that was just being put up to test us, if you will. You know, to try to see who's going to vote yes on this and who's going to vote no and who can we ding once they vote. And that's purely what it was. It was a political bill. And I know because I'm a veteran. I've been deployed multiple times. The longest set of orders I ever had, which was Iraq, was 500-day orders. You won't ever see a reservist or a guardsman being deployed longer than that. They're generally cut for 250, 260, at the most 360. And then if they're extended like I was in Iraq, they bumped them up to 500-day orders, which is still well under 3 years. And then you get demobbed, and then if you go again, you get a new set of orders. It's a new game. It starts over again. So in reality, the law did nothing, was going to do nothing to help veterans. But they tried to place us, and specifically maybe a couple of the people on the our side that are veterans, in that predicament. And all the veterans, we just did not vote. Which may or may not look bad, but it looks a lot better than voting no on a veteran bill. And I wasn't going to vote yes just because it has the word veteran on it, when they were playing politics with a bill. And that's kind of the games that are played. Like I said, it doesn't operate like business, and it definitely doesn't operate like the military. It's something unlike anything I've ever done. But that's just a situation from Monroe, from today. And that's a common thing. It's, as I said, they bring you a bill. It's politics. But I hope I gave enough information on the local choice proposal, a ballot petition proposal. Afterward, we'll end the meeting, and then I'll be available to talk about that if you're interested. So I'm going to end the meeting.
Can I
For the
just say
guys.
one thing?
Oh, yes, sir.
I have some personal